Hi, I'm Jordan,
I'm Sheridan.
And I'm Kate Canterbary.
and today we're doing the Kate Canterbary episode.
Yes, we are so excited to talk to Kate today. Kate is a USA Today bestselling author. She has written over 25 books, and today we're going to be talking to her about her work and also her recent release of In a Rush, which is the follow-up to In a Jam in her hit series, the Friendship Rhode Island series.
Yes, and we are so excited. I started with In a Rush and worked my way backwards, which is I'm so bad at that. Where like I never read interconnected standalones in order. But honestly,
I don't either.
It's been so weirdly rewarding because like I would find like I went back to the Vital Signs series and they mentioned running into Noah at the farmer's market. And I was like, oh my God, like things strangely panned out for me in a different way where I was like, this is so rewarding.
Yes. And I also just wanted to say too, like, and we totally both feel this way. We absolutely love your books and your writing style.
Thank you.
Like, we've really emotionally connected with them and like how you write your characters.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So just to kick it off, so you write some of the best pining. That is probably one of our favorite tropes is the like pining. It's always been her. And it's just every single one that you've done with that trope has been just some of our favorites. In a Jam, In a Rush, Change of Heart, right? How do you approach writing men who are so obsessed while still balancing such an interesting plot where you don't feel like the whole time you're like, oh, well, we've wrapped it up, right?
Yeah. So I meet my characters like almost fully baked. Like they come to me and they are in many cases, like I meet them as they are when they appear on the page. So I don't build them per se. They appear and I know who they are and I know what their quirks are. And so there isn't a whole lot of intentionality behind it, which doesn't give me a whole lot of credit for this. They just show up and like I'm a pretty intuitive writer in that way, so that I just kind of know where I'm going, even if I can't articulate it. But when it comes to pining in particular, I think that what I really like to do is just have characters who have lots of motives. That they have lots of things that drive them forward, that like keep them going, and they're often contradictory, that they want one thing but it's either not going to work for them or for their life or their needs, and so there's a lot of different directions that sort of compete. And I like it when a male main character also has a journey of his own. I think that sometimes we get these male main characters who like all they're doing is waiting for the female main character to be ready for them, or for the whatever event in the story to happen and things fall into place for them. But for me, I like it when they actually have something of their own to solve, some sort of inner conflict or some direction to figure out. And I think sometimes it is figuring out the balance between, okay, I want this, but it's either not good for me or not right for me, or it's not going to work the way I want.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially thinking of some of the MMCs off the top of my head, like how much they had to balance.
They're also very complex male main characters, which to your point of mentioning you like that they have their own journey. I think that's great. I think that adds depth to the relationships between the female main character and the male main character when they both kind of go through those journeys of their own. So this is something else we found super interesting while reading your books. And I actually think it's something you do really well in all of your books, but the settings are so well thought out and like, for lack of a better word that I can think of, but like lush. They're really well done, the settings, the world that you step into for the book. For example, In a Jam, in the farming area of Rhode Island, you do such a great job of just talking about all different types of like agriculture and the process of which jam is made and all of that. It's so detailed. So we just wanted to hear a little bit about like the thought process that you go into when you're writing these settings and the level of that detail.
So the settings are always a character, in my opinion, so that where it's set is just as relevant as who is in there with them. And so I started out my books in Boston, and I live in Boston, or I don't presently live in Boston. I live about 45 minutes away. But I went to college there. I spent a lot of time there. And so in many ways, these stories are about some people who happen to be in Boston and getting to see their experiences. And so when it came to Friendship, Rhode Island, which is not a real town, it is inspired by several. We do have some very odd named towns around here. We have Prudence Island, for example. We have a lot of unique places like that. But when it came to that, I wanted the flexibility to be able to make it inaccurate. Because one of my favorite things about writing Boston is that it is accurate. It is like, I have walked these exact streets and I know what I'm writing about. But every now and then I will get someone who will say, like, oh, the Red Hat closed in 2020. I'm like, yes, I know. But I wrote that book in 2013. So
yeah,
what can I do? But now, going to Friendship, I wanted it to be a place that I could control the landscape, and I wanted it to be a character just the same as Boston was, in a true, real way, just like so many farms are in New England, where they are working really hard to continue. It's hard work, and they're really important, I think, to our communities.
Agreed. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. And you have such a good point.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that. I was like, oh, so are the bars real? Because that's like where my mind goes immediately. Because I'm down a Walsh rabbit hole right now. I'm deep in the Walshes right now. So I was like, are these places real?
So many of them are. So when I first started writing, it did not occur to me in any way to invent places, not when like I knew the real places. And so many of them had been institutions that when I started writing, I had lived in Boston for a long time at that point, and I couldn't imagine a world in which they didn't exist. And then in 2020, the world changed massively, and all of these places that were like old little bars and dives just couldn't exist anymore, and a lot of them don't. And so like that was really heartbreaking, and I've like contemplated, do I go back and revise? But no, we're gonna keep that memorial there.
Yeah, and I want to live in Friendship, Rhode Island. Just real quick, like where Jam takes place, I want to live there. I'm a little bummed it's not a real place, but it sounds like it's based on some places that are real.
It is.
So, yes,
it's an amalgamation of places.
That's cool.
Awesome.
I gotta move.
Right? We live in the desert, so
yeah.
I understand that. I spent 10 years living in the Southwest, and before I came back to New England, and so I really understand the desire to live in like a damp, foggy, gray kind of place for a while.
Like we're lucky we get a lot of sunlight, but other than that, it's like we see rain, and our rain is like a blessed day. Like you want to take PTO, you want to just like soak it. You're like, it is cloudy. There is rain. Like we honor this day. Okay. So something I love about your writing is the FMC is usually the one who's not all in. And she's working through doubts about like a lasting relationship. What inspires you to take such a unique viewpoint on FMCs that you typically see that for MMCs?
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of things. So first, I think that in this moment in time that we live in, I think that there needs to be a really good reason for a woman to take a man. You need to add something to my life that I don't have, I cannot source on my own, and I wouldn't be able to fill with friendship or community or other things like that. And I think that in that regard, like a man isn't just, it is not an economic proposition anymore. We do not need a man to get us social standing or to let us open a bank account or things like that. If we want to have children, we can do it by ourselves usually. And so unless we have a really compelling reason to have a man in our life, we don't necessarily need one. And so it's got to be a really good man who's going to make something markedly better in her world and is not going to be a man child that she has to mother, is not going to be someone that she has to follow around and harp on to just be a basic contributor to a household. So for me, I want to see a character who makes the case for himself.
Yeah, I love that. I want to put that on a poster board.
That might be my favorite answer to any question ever. Amazing. Definitely want to put that on a poster board. So when you're thinking of your male main characters and your female main characters and you're building out a series in your mind, do you know from the beginning who may end up with who, or do they kind of just come to you as you're writing out the stories, the couples?
So I generally have a pretty good idea of where I'm going. I have an idea of the pairings that'll end up together. I don't always know what order it'll be. Sometimes it didn't occur to me that I was going to write Emmy and Ryan next. I spent a while just sort of wandering around and figuring out what to do. And I'm still contemplating exactly what to do for the next book. So I think that the order varies, and it really kind of depends upon who is being the noisiest. Like these characters that appear to me, like I hear them, they wander around in my head for a really long time. Some of them stay there for years upon years. When I was writing The Worst Guy, I was supposed to write it in the end of 2019, 2020. And I simply did not want to write an emergency medicine doctor in 2020. Like my mental health couldn't do it. And I couldn't figure out how to just sort of write life as usual in that context. So I didn't. So I waited like 2 years to even go back to that story, which was 2 years of Sebastian Stremmel just wandering around my head, like waiting for attention. And it was really difficult. But I just wait to see who talks to me and whose voices I hear, and which stories I feel the direction for it coming together. And sometimes the thing about, being an intuitive writer is at some point, someone has to start driving the bus. And sometimes that's me. And I have to say, nope, this is the plan. We're going forward. Let's do it. But without fail, if I ever announce publicly, oh, this is going to be book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I will end up changing that. So I have learned to not do that. People are like, oh, you're so evasive. You never tell us what's coming. Is it like a marketing strategy? No, it's just my own mind games. I'm just trying to like manage myself here. So I just go one book at a time, because if I announce like, oh, here's the next one, it's up for pre-order, I will not be able to write that book. Nope.
Sebastian is one of our favorite MMCs ever, so I love that you're like, no, he was in my mind for multiple years.
He is like one of my top 6-star reads of this year. Like the love I have for Sebastian and The Worst Guy, just in general as a book, like he was worth marinating, because I laughed for that entire book. Like I haven't laughed that hard, especially like their therapy sessions live rent free in my mind. Like his whole character arc, like I am too obsessed with him. He's one of my favorites.
It's great.
He is definitely one of those characters that, so, if you talk to writing coaches, they'll say things like, your first 1 or 2 books are usually the books from your id. Like they're the most basic primal things in the back of your brain, and they come out. And that's why a lot of people like them, because they're just this raw, sticky thing that everyone loves. Mm-hmm. And I think that Sebastian is one of those. Like he's book 22, 23 or something, but he was absolutely an id book. He was just, the deep, dark recesses of your brain kind of things.
We loved him. Okay, so for your Vital Signs series, how did you prepare for such a robust set of characters in such a specific work in the hospital? Because again, they all have such different, very specific roles that they're all pretty much phenomenal at. So you go in deep to these characters and their work.
So I have a problem, which is that I can't write something unless I do research on it. So I have a bookshelf full of books that are architecture, like preservation, historical, sustainability, things like that. And so like I feel completely blocked if I don't have a well of knowledge to draw from. So I go when I do research. I watch a lot of Grey's Anatomy, which isn't research. Like I understand like that's not real doctoring. That's something else. But there was that. And I also have the luxury of living in a neighborhood with a lot of doctors in it. And so I'm able to just go over to someone's house with a bottle of wine and say like, hey, let's chat about your residency. And I walk out 2 hours later with all the information I could ever need.
I love that.
That's amazing.
That's so cool. Also, you have mentioned in past interviews that when you're thinking of a series, you have playlists that you listen to while you're developing out those series. How do you feel that those playlists contribute to your writing style and process?
So for me, a playlist is like an emotional through line for the story. And so it is, and not everyone listens to a song and feels an emotion from it or derives, but that's how I experience it. And so I'll put together a playlist that is how the book feel start to finish. And I'll play around with moving the songs in different orders to where the beats of the story go. And so I know like it's going to start out in this difficult way, or these challenging moments, and it's going to end on this really high note. And it is for me more than anything else. So I'll share those lists, but I never expect readers to be like, oh yeah, I get this. This is a good playlist to go with the books. It is 100% just the thing I listen to on repeat 1,000 times.
Oh my goodness, this is so fascinating. I want to know what the songs on the playlist were for In a Jam. Like, if you remember.
I think that In a Jam is one of those books that I almost didn't create a play. It's one of the books that doesn't have one, or it has like one song on it. There are a few songs. Okay, so there's All Too Well.
Oh gosh. Okay, good.
Wait, hang on. 10-minute version or the original version? I was like, let's just be clear.
There's only one. There are times when like the same song will appear on 15 different playlists. Like some of them stick with me. Heat Waves from Glass Animals.
Ooh.
Girls Like You from The Naked and Famous. About a Girl, the Nirvana Live edition.
Ooh.
Okay.
Because the Night, the 10,000 Maniacs version. And I Feel Like I'm Drowning.
Oh, because I feel like Noah felt like he was drowning every time he saw Shay. Yes.
I'm never going to move on past All Too Well. That's so perfect.
I know. So perfect. But a quick side note, I hope you're okay sharing all this with us, because this is fantastic.
Yes.
Do you know any songs from The Worst Guy? Because I know you said Sebastian was ruminating in your mind for a couple years, but yeah. Did he have a playlist?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So this one's long. This one is a long, messy thing, but
you can just give us your tops if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's Confident by Demi Lovato.
Oh, okay.
Boss, Doja Cat. Mood Ring by Lorde.
Ooh.
Let's see. Teeth from 5 Seconds of Summer. You Wouldn't Like Me, Tegan and Sarah.
Ooh.
My Sharona, which is like a throwback. Let's see.
Was that for when they were on vacation?
I think so.
Why do probably. I picture them literally on vacation?
Big Empty, Stone Temple Pilots, Fix You Up from Tegan and Sarah.
Oh, I love it.
So good.
Thank you
so
for
many good
sharing
ones
those.
there. Yes.
Okay. What is the best advice you've received as an author?
So I think the very best advice is like 2 big things. One of them is just do the things that are right for you. I think that it is so incredibly easy to look over and say, oh, this person is doing whatever, and think I should be doing it, or this is the way it should be done. And neither of those things are true. You should do whatever is right for you, and feel no shame, no regret, no remorse about it. And also not any envy either. Like, it's easy to feel envy. It's easy to say like, oh, this person's, they're doing this great thing. They have these great things. Ultimately, it is a confluence of circumstances that brought them to that place. Your circumstances are different, and that's totally fine. And the other piece is pretty similar, like just eyes on your own paper, like focus on your own book. The only thing that matters is the book you're writing. And so I am definitely someone who's very much impacted emotionally by the world around me. And so when the world is in a stressful, turmoil kind of place, it's hard for me to write and hard for me to go to a place where people are happy and in love. Like if I'm having stress in my personal relationships, it's hard for me to write happy people who are falling in love. So I think that being able to keep my eyes focused on myself, focus on what I can control, which means controlling the diet of material that I take in. It's like my news feed is absolutely the most important thing I can control. So if I am not on social media for 2 months, it's because it's unhealthy for me.
Yes. Yeah. We talk about that actually between us all the time, like between as readers, what we're picking to read, or even like times like where we're just like, I literally can't go on social media unless it's just our book account, because I cannot mentally be present in this world or in this circumstance.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Like I know what's happening. I am aware. I'm not hiding from the realities, but I also cannot consume it at the volume in which like the fire hose of social media puts it out there. And I think that is Like we were never meant to consume this much content.
No. And
of
there
such
are
traumatic
like,
scale.
There are times where you just scroll and it's like you could be on for, let's say, 30 minutes and 90% of what you consumed was that negative onslaught. And you just leave it and you're like, oh, I'm in a really bad spot than I was 30 minutes ago. Like, that's probably not great.
That didn't help anyone.
No. And I think that's excellent advice for all different facets of life, because it's important that we stay authentic and true to us and what works for us, and also focusing on our own journeys. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. That's excellent advice for in multiple areas of our lives. I wanted to talk to you today about the journey that Sarah goes through as well as Shay goes through. I just absolutely love their journey is extremely authentic. We connected so much emotionally to those female main characters. Like, the strive to no longer be a people pleaser is something personally I still deal with on a day-to-day basis. Yep. So I love that your advice of authenticity, basically, and being true to yourself and what works for yourself. I think that really translates to your characters too. Like, as a there's something I really loved about your books and your characters is they feel very authentic and relatable.
Thank you.
In that way. Absolutely. So speaking of your characters and, their different personalities, if you could meet any of them in real life for coffee, who would you pick?
So I feel like I meet them all for coffee in like very real ways because they never leave me. I think that Emmy would be a really fun person to meet, because I think she's someone who just accepts her friends as who they are, that whatever version of them she meets is who they are, and she accepts them for that, and she loves them for that, and I appreciate that so much about her. That I have a lot of characters who their inner monologues are tough places to be, that they are critical of themselves, they're critical of others, they're critical of the world around them. And Emmy is just kind of floating along. She's like, okay, you're here, we're friends, it's good. And I think that is everyone needs that person in their life.
100%.
It would be great to talk to Sebastian, just to listen to him complain. Like, just
yes. I would have a field day having sarcasm with Sebastian. I feel like I'd pick Shannon because I just finished Shannon's book. And let me tell you the emotional turmoil I am still in. Like, I was telling Sheridan before this, I was like, I need to finish this series because I think because they're all on the same timeline, I still have so many things left unread in my heart that I can't let go of. So I just I want to give her a hug.
Shannon is definitely an id book. That is definitely the rawest, ugliest, honestest stuff. She is one of those books where I think that there are certain books where, and I know that other authors do this, where you just tell the truth more. Yeah. I think that is Shannon, and it's Sarah, and to some degree Shay. I think that those are just characters who are naked and bald about how they are, and there's no desire to smooth it down.
Can I ask, so in Shannon's book, when Sam gives the speeches at the wedding, he thanks everybody but Shannon.
He thanks the cornerstone.
Does he? Okay, because I reread that part 3 times. I think so. And I was like, he didn't look at her, and I was like, did he? But she never says anything about it, and I've been bothered about that. And I was like, do I need to get to Sam's book where I just have missed this part? Because I was like, did Sam forget her?
I believe he said the cornerstone.
Okay, I need to reread that line then, because I was like, please don't skip over my Shannon after all of this. Okay, thank you. You have given me so much peace, because I have not stopped thinking about that.
Will would have gotten up there and him. So.
Right? Oh my God, yeah. Okay. So if you could be friends, would this be kind of in the same line as Emmy? Would you choose to be friends with any of your characters?
So I think that Lauren is a good person to be friends with because she is a mom without ever being a mom. She waits a real long time to have any kids, but she kind of adopts all the Walsh kids as her own.
Yeah.
And she's going to take care of all of her people, and she'll know their secrets, and she's not going to ask for anything in returon.
We all need friends like that. We all need people like that in our lives.
And she doesn't judge. She'd be knowing, but she never says, but when somebody finally owns up, she's like, that's fine. Oh.
She knew all along. It's fine.
So speaking of characters Shannon, Sarah, you do a really good job of writing characters that embody like they've gone through something traumatic, or it's not necessarily, they're flawed main characters, but they're real, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're writing characters like that makes them relatable to the reader, how do you balance creating those characters that have that trauma and things that they're working through while still like giving them their satisfying arc and like happily ever after, so to speak?
Yeah. I think it's important to never make love or a happy ever after the solution to anyone's trauma.
Yes.
That no matter how much someone loves you or how great your relationship is, you will always deal with like the remnants of an eating disorder or any of these things. Like they never go away. There's no magic penis for that. And so so like in that regard, I think it's just a matter of like, how do you go through something terrible, but decide you are still worthy? And I think that is more about their journey than anything. Like they are deciding that they can embrace love. And like, honestly, it's really hard when you have like people pleasing trauma, or you have violence or any of these traumas, and you want to be in a relationship, you can still f it up. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter how much you're loved, you still have this capacity in yourself to fight it off because it feels unnatural. Or you feel threatened every single day by just existing in a place where people want to embrace you, or you just grew up walking on eggshells. That never goes away. And so I think that being able to give these women the opportunity to continue investing in themselves, and knowing that like they have places to lean on, they have support, and that they're never fixed, but there is this constant element of hope, that the whole purpose of romance is hope, that whoever you are, wherever you are deserving of love, and that you will find it.
Oh, I love that. That's so powerful. And I think something specifically I love about Sarah's story too, in The Worst Guy, is her support system. Like all these people are like, no, like we want to hang out with you no matter what. We want to be there for you. We want, like, they continue to reach out. And I think it was just beautifully written, because I think, like you said, everyone wants to feel that they have people that they can fall back on and rely on, that are reaching out, and that they are worthy of these connections. So I just really resonated with that. I just love how you wrote that. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
So speaking of trauma, has there ever been a character who, while you were writing their trauma, it felt really difficult to write or approach or just like live in?
Yeah. I think that particularly with Sarah and Sebastian, there's a lot to work with there for both of them, that I like very intentionally had to not write anything as heavy immediately after. I had to spend some time not experiencing, and they're so terrible to each other. Like, they are so mean, and they're so like visceral with each other, that like that was like emotionally, mentally exhausting to write the two of them and all the things they go through, because it's not clear whether they're going to make it, and she's still living through so much of her childhood trauma with her dad on the page, and so like that was exhausting. And I think with Shannon in particular, it's also exhausting because she's carrying the weight of her relationship with her brothers, and like the vestiges of her family and these things. It was also hard to write Teal in a lot of ways. So Teal is a character who I was at an event like 2 or 3 years ago, just a reader Q&A event, and someone stood up who I love and appreciate, and they said, "Who is the most hated character in your series, and why is it Teal?" And
I can see that.
We all had a good laugh. So like I was not offended, but it was one of those situations where like, yep, like a lot of people really struggle with her. And I think that she is truly the embodiment of someone who is for sure neurodivergent in some fashion, whether it's written explicitly on the page or not. She's also just so broken in so many ways. And like that is hard to see. And when she's not nice to the other girls, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like that was it was cathartic in a way to write it, because I always wanted to write someone who struggled to fit in to a big family when they were the new person. But everyone wants them to fit in. So it was hard. It was hard for that to be the case.
Yeah. And it is interesting too, because I think even when you read the other Walsh's point of views and how she's received even on their end at first is not typically what you see in a traditional. It's usually like, welcome in, we're all besties, right? And she definitely see that struggle on all ends of like getting her to click in with the group.
Yep.
Okay, taking it in a slightly different direction for our next question. You write some of our favorite spicy scenes of all contemporary romance, like Noah as a spicy male main character.
Oh my God.
Excellent spice.
He caught me off guard too. I was like, oh.
Fantastic. And something that we also love in all of your books is it's so well placed. Like sometimes Jordan and I agree on this, and everyone enjoys to read what they want to read, but we really like the characters to be developed, there to be tension growing, and then you have well placed spice that feels a part of the story and the romance. And we think you do a really good job at that. So we just kind of wanted to ask, what is your process? How do you plan out your spicier scenes, or when you think you want to place them in a book?
Yeah, so like to me, I always believe that there needs to be a reason for a scene. Like it has to, like if you can skip it, you gotta pull it. Like, and I don't ever go through and delete scenes, mostly because I don't overwrite. I'm never in the position of having too much to work with. But for me, like I need to know why they're going there, and like what emotional event will occur, like what truth will come out, like what progress the intimacy will have, like things like that. And so if there's not a reason, if you can functionally skip it and continue the story unscathed, then I'm not doing something right. And when it comes to like it being at the right time, I sometimes like I intuitively know like where I'm going in this book, and usually I'll put in a note like, okay, I think we're having some times here. We'll see how it happens. Sometimes it is sooner. Sometimes it is later. But it's really by, like, I'll be writing it and I will feel like something is off. Like you leave the house and like, did I leave the flat iron on? Like that sort of thing. And it's like, I will be writing and like, something's not right here. And it's either like, there's not enough intimacy, there's not enough tension, something. And so I'll spend a few days just wandering around and being unhappy about it. And then like, oh, like they probably, like, I should have like put them in bed a chapter ago. And sometimes I'll go back and I'm like, this doesn't have enough, or there's not enough tension building here. But usually I just I feel my way through it.
Okay. So I know you've kind of already told us you're not certain, so you can tell us you're not certain, but are there any projects that you're currently excited about, or anything you can give us hints about that you have coming up?
So I'm excited about 2 projects right now. I'm excited about 3 of them actually, but so which is like my problem. I have plenty of ideas. It's just a matter of where do I go first. It's like you get to Disneyland and you're like, I'm gonna run. Where do I run to? And so I have been thinking about Audrey's book for so long. Like an unbelievably long time. I know I've mentioned like in various places that I started writing Emmy and Ryan's book in 2016. And I did, and I shelved it, and I came back to it just now. And I always like had this lingering thought in my head, like, how am I going to work this story out? I don't know where I'm going with them. Same thing with Audrey. I've had that book in my head for a little bit longer, and I know where it's going, but it's one of those like emotionally grueling stories that I have to be emotionally prepared to write. So debating on that, I would love to write Ruthie's story, Ryan's sister Ruth. And I think that she is, I love her because she's a bitch. Like I love writing like difficult women. I really, really do. And the ones who like their family is all like wonderful, sunflowers and gumdrops, and like she's just this gray rain cloud in the corner. I love that so much. And I very, very much want to write Jamie's book.
That's exciting. Yeah. We're excited for these stories in these books as well.
Yeah. So like there are 3 people, and there's a Dr. O'Rourke who's waiting for a book, and he's going to show up in one of them.
Oh, okay. Very excited. I'm excited for Ruthie's book and all of the ones you mentioned, but yeah.
I feel like Audrey's the one who like scares me, but she was the one who was like yelling at me in the last 2 books where I was like, oh, you've got some things to tell me and I'm nervous about it.
Yep. Audrey's seen some shit.
Okay, so we are obsessed with how you handle third act tension or like a third act breakup. And it never feels redundant or misplaced. It always flows in the story. So we wanted to ask, what do you think is the key to writing the appropriate amount of third act tension where it doesn't ruin the story or the growth of the characters that we've grown to love?
So I don't think that this is a secret or anything. It's just kind of how my brain works. But I always know when I meet these characters, what's going to f it up for them. And so like I know, and I may not know the mechanism of how I get to that spot, but I always know like how it's going to fall apart in the end. And some of them have a better, bigger, more dramatic fall apart, and some of them don't. But I knew exactly what would happen with Noah and Shay, even if I didn't know how I was going to get them to that point. And I knew exactly how it was going to fall apart for Ryan and Emmy. And so I think that those are the things that I always go in knowing. I don't always know, like I don't outline in any aggressive way, not usually. And I kind of just feel my way through stories usually, but I always know like if it's going to break up or if they're going to have a moment or something will happen. If it's internal or external, I know what that thing is usually.
Interesting. And it always, like I said, it always feels very natural. And we need that tension in the third act. Like you need that tension for the story. So it always feels very like, yes, if this was real life, this is what these people were going through. This is probably how they'd behave. So that's really interesting.
And without spoiling anything, because I'm going to try to be vague in case somebody hasn't read it. But in A Jam, the way you approached that third act was something I was very nervous about. I think when you have children, right, it's something you think about much more at the forefront. And I've read other books where they take it a different way. So I appreciated how you were still able to deliver that in a way that didn't ruin like all of the other things that clicked into place that could have then been like, oh, I don't like that fitting back in anymore. And I thought it was just such a great approach.
Agreed.
So I've never written a book with a kid in it before. So In a Jam was my first one. And I have a kid. So like, and I know that they change your relationship in a lot of ways. And so like, whenever I read single parent books and like the kid is just magically off doing something by themselves or you sleep in on the weekend, I'm like, that is not real. Like I have a great, well-behaved, amazing child who never once in her life slept past 7 a.m. on a Saturday.
Right.
So like, and if there was something going on in a room, she would want to know what.
Yeah.
Like, she would never be like, I'm going to play independently and leave you alone. No, never. So like that certainly informs my perspective on single parent books.
Yeah, absolutely.
And something, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Something we always talk about too is we want to see unique family structures. Like we want to see like that representation of families that would exist in real life in the books that we read. And what I love about In a Jam is they talk about that. Like when they're in their relationship, they talk about like they are raising a child together. Yeah. Like it's his, I don't want to again spoil if no one's read it. If you haven't read it, go read it. But I love that they talked about I love that they talked about how like what do we want that future to look like? Like what do we want that family to look like? And I love like you even put in the book that Shay mentions she had an idea, she goes through some things that change her life completely, change her perspectives. It was really unique. Loved seeing the representation of a different family structure. Absolutely loved it. Something else we really love about your books is a lot of your female main characters really demonstrate body positivity. And we just wanted to kind of hear your perspective on that, of writing female main characters. We'd love to hear more.
Yeah. And so I think it's really similar to like family structures in the regard, like okay, families are just made up of a bunch of people living together and doing their best. And so are humans. We are just who we are. The least interesting thing about us is our body size.
Yes.
Yes.
It will change over time. There, in many ways, we can't control it. Try as we might, but like the misery and effort that we put into controlling our bodies is just a weapon of the patriarchy. If we spend time as women dedicating all of our energy, all of our fears and our emotions to controlling the shape of our body to be more pleasing to men, we will have absolutely no time to tear down that structure, and to speak about true oppression. And so I think that being able to be comfortable in your body, even when you don't love it. And I think that Shay talks about that on a few occasions. Like, she doesn't always love her body. And it is what it is. But she has bigger problems at that time than what she's eating. And I think that just people who have real normal struggles, and also, like, personally, it isn't my favorite thing to read a female character who always grunts and groans over her perceived blemishes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We truly don't have the energy for that. We have bigger problems in the world. People need to be embraced for who they are. And that's it.
Yeah.
Agreed. I highlighted the quote on my Kindle of when Shay says our bodies are the least interesting things about us. Like that, yeah. I highlighted that in the book. Absolutely love that and agreed.
And a lot of times I even feel like it's a major like tension point in a book where you're like, okay, like what else though? Because that can't be your Mount Everest. You know what I mean?
That's so true. And I remember growing up on a steady diet of 90s chick lit, where there were so many books that were just about a woman's journey to loving her body, but actively losing a ton of weight in the process.
Right.
And that wasn't helpful for anyone.
Right.
And I just, like, we know now scientifically our bodies are diverse. It's fine. Like, you can be healthy at any size. Let's just go and, make a mess of the world we live in instead of a mess of ourselves.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
1000%.
So on a different note, the humor you introduce to characters, like I said, it always has me laughing out loud. Like, I absolutely love the humor you bring. There was one quote that I literally had to write down when I thought of this question, which was, I believe it was in The Worst Guy. And she says, since I knew from experience that he was going to continue speaking of whether I agreed, argued, or shape-shifted into a dolphin. And I could not stop laughing. How do you approach writing some of these like off-the-cuff humorous lines?
So, like, the really unfortunate answer is that it just comes out. And I'll tell you, my husband doesn't believe me when I say that, because he'll say, I'll make a comment to him and he'll say, how long have you been waiting to say that to me? I'm like, I haven't, I swear to you, it just came to me. And I think that part of it is that, like, I hear these characters so deeply. Like, I will be walking through the grocery store and I will hear characters sitting in my head having conversations, and which sounds really alarming to people, like, at a psychiatric level. And I promise it's not. It's fine. It's fine. But like, spending so much time with them and knowing them so deeply, I spend at a minimum 6 months writing every book. And so they are with me day and night for a long time. So I get to know them in that way. And I hear these quirks and I hear them yelling at each other, and it just comes out.
That's great. That's fantastic.
I love it. Yeah. Some of them just like I said, when she said shapeshift into a dolphin, I was like, oh my God, I can literally mentally picture the dissociation occurring at this moment because I have experienced it.
Okay, so we mentioned at the top of the episode, you write one of our favorite tropes extremely well, which is like pining and mixed with it's only ever been you. When you want to read something, a romance book, what are your favorite tropes to read?
I am terrible about reading at tropes. I am very much a mood reader of like, oh, this overall sound, like I have to read the blurb. I usually read like the first 20 pages or so before I decide like, oh, I want to do this. But I'm also really interested in like anything an author that I love writes. I'm going to read everything. It doesn't matter what different directions they go. It doesn't matter what trope it is. So it's, people that I love, and also recommendations from people I trust, and just Also random things I pick up. I am very much a schizophrenic mood reader in that way. It's just whatever you give me, I will take. And I usually have 3 different books going at once. I usually have a print, an ebook, and an audio.
Oh, dang. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
They're all different purposes.
Okay.
So like I only listen to audio when I'm exercising. And so it's like a really great incentive, because if I really want to finish a book, like, okay, we're going out for a long walk today. Or ebooks are from like downtime when I'm, waiting to pick up my daughter at school, or when I'm like in the evening when I'm about to go to bed. And paperbacks are for when I sit outside, when I am traveling, when I am like on my sofa. So all different states of mind.
That's awesome. Same thing. When I'm cleaning, I have to listen to an audiobook. Best combo ever. So I completely understand that. Can we ask, what are your current 3 if you've got a lineup going right now?
So I have a Kimberly Lemming ebook. It's her newest ebook, and I'm terrible at titles. I'm really terrible at titles. So whatever Kimberly Lemming's newest is right now, there's that. I just finished a paperback recently, and I'm waiting for a new one that is a nonfiction craft book by Rick Rubin, who's, again, the title. And I am listening to Throne of Glass.
Ooh. Yeah. How deep are you into Throne of Glass?
Not too far, probably just 2 hours or so.
Okay, book 1
so then? Early. Yeah. Yeah, I debated like what direction. I know. And I really enjoy doing romantasy in audiobooks. I think that, first of all, they pronounce the names for me, so I never have to wonder. And I know for a fact if I was reading it in print, I would be mentally pronouncing it very differently. But I love being able to have something that's really long, and I can go through it and just spend like an entire season with it. My daughter's reading Cruel Prince right now, and I debated whether I should listen in audio with her, and she's like, no, it's fine, don't do it. Meaning leave me alone.
Yeah, this is my journey. That's awesome. Throne of Glass is for sure a listener, because she and I both read it, and then I went back when we reread it through the audio, and I was like, I was not saying any of these names right. Honestly, I had a different world happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Kale would have never been Kale.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
No, I remember hearing it and pronounced the first time, and I was like, I don't know how that's spelled, but it's not how I would have thought it would be.
No, same.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you did mention that there were a couple authors, like if there's an author that you like really like that you would just auto buy. Are you comfortable sharing with us your auto buy authors?
Yeah. So I always buy whatever Kennedy Ryan has. I love her audiobooks. I finished her most recent audiobook, the follow-up to Before I Let Go. I listened to the second and the third in that series. The audios are so profoundly good. I read whatever Zoe Draven puts out. What else do I have? I love Julie Soto. Her work is every single book is so unique, and the voice is so great. Kate Claiborne, who is like my twin. We get confused for each other all the time. Like I get tagged in reviews for her. She gets tagged in. It's fine. We love it.
You're like, oh yes, my book.
It's all good. I love Rebecca Weatherspoon's work. I think that she writes some really great steam. It's just wonderful. I'm sure I'm missing some. Those are a few that pop up at the moment. I recently went deep down with Nisha Sharma's books. Her Shakespeare, If Shakespeare Were an Auntie series was so sweet. A great marriage with convenience at the very end. Or an Oops, We're Married. Yeah, those were fun.
I love it. Yeah, Kennedy Ryan's written some stuff that she's one of those trauma writers where I went into it being like, oh, this is going to be like a nice little basketball romance. And I left and I was I am not the same. I am a different person.
No, I think that her Skyland series, which begins with Before I Let Go, is, I'd say that the trauma is still there. It is not as intense. I think it's on par with like an Abby Jimenez read. And so like and I think that the content notes are provided as well. So you know what you're getting into there. But it's such a beautiful story of like rich female friendship. And again, the narrators are so good. Wesley Siobhan is amazing. She was in 2 of the audios and just absolutely brings those books to so much beauty in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Okay, so we're going to segue into some games if you're ready. All with your characters. So we'll start with Would You Rather. Okay, so if you were a teacher, would you rather have Ryan and Emmy or Noah and Shay as students?
I think Noah and Shay, I think they'd be better behaved. I think Ryan would somehow be a problem child. He wouldn't intend to, but he would.
Yeah. I could see that. He did
Noah's
go to
a
U
good
of
boy.
A. Yes. Yes.
So
Thank you.
We are Arizonans. So and we are both ASU alumni. So reading that, we were like, oh yeah.
There are some like very, very slight bits of football humor in that book that like only if you know it do you get it. Which one of them would be U of A winning a bowl championship.
Right.
Yes. Can I ask something that has been deep within my soul, if this is okay? But if it's not okay, you can tell me. But for the football humor, was Ryan slightly based off the story of Rob Gronkowski?
No, he's
Okay.
based off of Sam. Well, I can't remember his last name. He was the quarterback at Notre Dame with the hair.
Oh, okay. But yes, I was reading that and I was like, oh, okay, very interesting, very cool. That's awesome. Sorry to anyone if you're listening that you went to U of A. We did not mean to slay
I'm
you.
not sorry.
Okay.
Even if you did go to U of A, you would know that you're not winning a bowl championship.
Literally all of my sisters, Step and Real, went to U of A. So this is like every year. It's just one text message of just absolute shit talking about it.
There was one line about how like they lost a Super Bowl to Minnesota one year. That's not happening. That didn't happen.
I love that.
So
you're like, that didn't happen.
Very tiny like inside joke. If you know.
Yes.
You know that's not happening.
Are you, being from New England, are you a Patriots fan? Or do you have
Well, I mean, my husband probably wouldn't have married me otherwise. I think that it's required. And also like you can't survive around here too. Like you can either be indifferent or you can be on the team. But there's
no rivalry.
There's no other option, so to speak. Okay. Would you rather crash weddings with Whitney and Mary or make jam with Noah and Shay?
I would love to crash weddings. I think that would be so much fun.
Yes.
Agreed. I've never done it, but it sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. I feel like, especially since they have all the rules to make it work, like I
Give
felt
a
like
strategy.
made sense to me, where I was like, the things like I was initially worried about that they would like address, and I was like, oh, okay. All right. We have a plan. Okay. Would you rather be taught how to drive by Henry or Sebastian?
Henry. I feel like Sebastian would just stop the car. He'd get out, he'd walk away. Henry has a bit of patience.
Very true. I feel like Sebastian would just be mean to me.
Right.
That too.
Right.
That too.
Okay. Would you rather be an intern for the Walshes or a resident at the Boston Hospital?
I think the Walshes. I think the Walshes because there are only a few really, really crazy folks there. Like Patrick can be on his own. And he has his mitigating factor of Andy. Andy's always there to calm things down. But the rest of them are not quite as unhinged. I feel like being a medical resident would be too tiring.
Yeah. It would be, but at the same time, I was like, the Walshes be firing everybody. So I don't know.
This is true. It's tough. Either way, it's tough.
Okay. Which friends or family text message group chat would you like to join?
Wow. I feel like the Grandma Cece text chain would be pretty great.
Yeah.
I feel like that the intergenerational mayhem is like a lot of fun.
Oh, for sure. Okay, we're gonna switch gears and play Mary, if that's okay, with your characters. So first up, we have Mary, Patrick, Riley, or Matt. You're like,
all right,
thinking about it.
It's a hard one.
Okay, I Matt.
I almost don't blame you.
Like he's lovely. He's lovely. He's unobjectionable. He's a good golden retriever. I'd probably marry Riley because he is like steadfast, and Patrick just has like the right aggression. Like he just has that much energy.
So you're like,
I'm surprised at the marry of Riley.
I feel like he would be. I feel like he's just devoted in that. Like he's loyal.
I read him first. I'm
not
okay. Well. I went in weird order.
No, that's fine. I'm actually a big advocate of like very diverse reading order that series. I started writing The Spire first, and I put it down and like backward planned from the others. But I think that Riley he's chaos, but he's loyal.
Yes, very true. Okay. Mary, Henry, Sebastian, or Nick?
Ooh.
Okay, so I'd marry Nick. I adore Nick. I think like Nick is like my original favorite character in so many ways, just because he is just so enduring. And then Henry. So I would Henry for simply as a matter of elimination. Definitely Sebastian.
Oh. Not mad about that answer.
Some after therapy time.
Yes. Okay, last but certainly not least, Noah, Ryan, or Beckett.
Okay, so Beckett. He's a handful. The thing about characters who are like a uniquely grouchy character can be hard to live with in a practical way. Like my husband is definitely a grouchy person, and like listen, there are times when I'm like, are you actually mad at me or not? I need to know. And he's like, no, this is just how I exist. And so that is why Beckett would have to go. We'll keep my husband though. And then let's see, I fuck Noah, marry Ryan.
Ooh, okay.
Honestly, also not bad. Noah was surprisingly freaky.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't go wrong.
No.
Awesome. Well, okay, so that wraps up everything we have. Is there anything that you would like to plug, socials, anything like that before we separate?
I'm terrible at plugging things. I never know what to offer. I mean, and I don't even know what I'm writing next, but it was so great to chat with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. We loved having you. Like I said, we've been obsessed with all of your series. I think I'm currently on Nick's book, so I'm very excited.
Yes. Thank you so much again for meeting with us.
Of course. Thank you.
With us.
Yes. And we can't wait for what you have next. And I believe you have TikTok and Instagram, Kate Canterbary. Awesome. So you can find her there. You can find us at Sippin on Spice. And we hope to see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.